Welcome to the DigyKeys podcast. I'm Ethan Carter, and I'm really excited you're here today for a deep dive into a topic that I think is pretty important to all of us. Self-confidence.
Yeah.
That inner strength and belief in ourselves that can really make a huge difference in everything we do. And to help us kind of unlock the secrets of self-confidence, I've got the amazing Madison Brooks with me.
Hi, everyone. It's great to be here.
So, Madison, we're tapping into DigyKeys for this deep dive. And wow, it is packed with insights about self-esteem and self-efficacy, core beliefs, and all kinds of strategies. It even had me thinking, did you know that something like 85% of people struggle with self-esteem? It's true. And what about this thing called self-efficacy? Why is it so important? Get ready for some aha moments because we're going to unpack all of it.
It really is remarkable how many people have trouble with self-esteem, Ethan. It really shows how important it is to understand how confidence works. And that's where DigyKeys comes in with some really fascinating points.
All right, so let's start with the basics. DigyKeys makes this really interesting point that self-confidence isn't just like some magical thing you're born with. It's actually a skill you can develop. Pretty empowering, right?
Absolutely. It means that no matter where you're starting from, you have the power to build up your self-assurance. It's like learning a new language or learning to play an instrument. It takes work and practice. But if you approach it the right way, anyone can become more confident.
So it's not about being born without fear or having a big ego. It's about trusting yourself to handle challenges effectively.
Exactly. It's about recognizing your strength and the areas where you can grow and believing in your ability to learn and adapt and get past obstacles.
DigyKeys also talks about how self-confidence and self-esteem are related, which seems really important. What's the connection there?
Think of it this way. Self-esteem is like the base, and self-confidence is the structure you build on top of it. Self-esteem is how much you value yourself as a person. And like we said earlier, a surprising number of people have issues with their self-esteem.
85%, if I remember correctly.
Yeah.
Which is kind of mind-blowing when you think about it. So you're saying that if you don't have a strong sense of self-worth, it's a lot harder to believe you can succeed.
Exactly. If you keep telling yourself, I'm not good enough, it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy that can really hurt your confidence in certain situations. So a lot of times boosting your self-confidence starts with dealing with any self-esteem problems you might have.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Now, DigyKeys also brings up this idea of self-efficacy, which sounds a little academic. Can you explain that for us? Why is it important for confidence?
Self-efficacy, a term coined by psychologist Albert Bandura, is essentially your belief in your ability to get things done through your actions. It's that I can do this mindset, and it has a big impact on how you deal with challenges and setbacks.
So it's not just about feeling good about yourself generally, but it's about actually believing you can make a difference, achieve your goals, and deal with whatever comes your way.
Exactly. And what's really interesting is that research shows a strong link between self-efficacy and how much you actually achieve. DigyKeys mentions a study where how much students believed in themselves actually predicted how well they did on their final exams, even after you factored in their previous grades.
That's really cool. So if you believe you can do it, you're more likely to actually do it. I wonder if that applies to other parts of life too.
There's evidence to suggest that it does, whether it's working on a creative project, starting a business, or building relationships. Self-efficacy gives you that extra push. It keeps you motivated and helps you keep going, even when things get tough.
So how do we actually develop this self-efficacy? Is it something we can learn or get better at?
Bandura's theory says there are 4 main ways we get self-efficacy: mastery experiences, vicarious experiences, verbal persuasion, and emotional states. Let's go through each one, starting with mastery experiences. Imagine you're trying to learn guitar. At first, it's all about the struggle, sore fingers, annoying chords, and maybe even some broken strings.
Yeah, I know what you mean. I tried learning piano once.
But then something amazing happens. You finally get a chord progression down, you nail a tough riff, or maybe you even play a whole song. Each one of those small wins, those times when you successfully do something, builds your confidence.
So every time you prove to yourself you can do something, it makes you believe more that you can handle challenges in the future. It's like you're creating a history of success.
Exactly. And the more wins you get, the stronger your self-efficacy becomes.
Now let's move on to vicarious experiences. Have you ever watched an athlete you admire break a world record or seen a musician absolutely crush it on stage?
Oh, definitely. It's inspiring.
That's a vicarious experience boosting your self-efficacy. When you see someone you connect with achieve something amazing, it can make you believe that, hey, maybe you can do it too.
So it's about being around people who inspire you, people who show you what's possible. That's really good advice. Now, the third way, verbal persuasion, might sound a little strange. It's all about the power of positive feedback and encouragement from other people. Like, think about it. When people believe in you and tell you that they think you can do it, it can make a big difference, especially when you're doubting yourself.
Yeah, having a good support system is key. Those cheers can really make you believe in yourself more. Okay, what about emotional states? How do our emotions affect our self-efficacy?
Our emotions are kind of like the fuel for our actions, you know? When you're feeling optimistic and excited, you're more likely to approach challenges with that "I can do this" attitude. But when you're anxious, stressed, or overwhelmed, even the easiest things can seem impossible.
It's like when you're in a good mood
Mm,
and it feels like you can do anything, versus those days when you wake up on the wrong side of the bed and every little thing feels like climbing a mountain.
exactly. Learning to manage your emotions is really important for keeping a healthy level of self-efficacy.
Okay, so we've covered the 4 sources of self-efficacy. Let's go back to DigyKeys. It talks about these things called core beliefs. What are they? And how do they impact our confidence?
Core beliefs are these deep down beliefs we have about ourselves and the world. They usually come from our childhood experiences, and they can really influence how we see ourselves and what we think we're capable of. DigyKeys makes a big deal about how important they are.
So you're saying that if we have negative core beliefs like I'm not good enough or I'll always fail, it can actually hurt our confidence.
Exactly. Those beliefs can turn into self-fulfilling prophecies. You know, if you think you're going to fail, you might not even try. Or you might give up too easily when things get hard. It's like having an inner critic that's always putting you down.
It's a little discouraging.
Yeah.
But DigyKeys has some advice on how to handle these negative core beliefs.
Yeah, it does. It suggests a few different things. The first step is figuring out what those negative beliefs are. This might mean some introspection, maybe journaling, or even working with a therapist. The key is to become aware of those thought patterns that are holding you back.
So it's like shining a light on those negative beliefs and really taking a look at them. Once you've identified them, what comes next?
The next step is to challenge those beliefs. Instead of just accepting them as true, look for evidence that proves them wrong. For example, if you have a core belief that "I'm not good at public speaking," think about times when you've given presentations successfully or spoken up in meetings.
So it's about actively looking for times that prove those negative beliefs wrong. I can see how that would start to weaken their hold on you.
Another great technique that DigyKeys talks about is using positive affirmations.
You mean those I am statements that affirm our strengths and abilities?
Yeah, exactly. Repeating affirmations like "I am confident," "I am capable," or "I am worthy of success" can slowly start to change your mindset to one of greater self-belief.
It's like rewiring your brain for positivity and confidence. And if these negative core beliefs are really ingrained, DigyKeys also suggests maybe trying therapy or counseling.
Yeah. If you're struggling to deal with deep-seated negative beliefs on your own, getting help from a professional can be really helpful. A therapist can give you the tools and support you need to address those underlying issues and develop a more positive belief system.
Okay, we've talked a lot about what goes on inside our heads with self-confidence, but DigyKeys also mentions the social side of it. I'm curious about that. How do the ways we interact with other people affect how much we believe in ourselves?
Our social interactions have a big impact on our self-confidence. DigyKeys talks about this really interesting idea called sociometer theory. It was developed by a psychologist named Mark Leary.
Okay, I've never heard of that. Tell me more.
It basically says that our self-esteem is like a meter that tells us how accepted we are by other people. We're naturally programmed to want to belong, to be part of a group, and our self-esteem goes up or down depending on how we feel about our social standing.
So we're constantly figuring out how much other people accept or reject us, and that influences how we feel about ourselves.
Exactly. Think about it. When someone praises you for your work, gives you a compliment, or just makes you feel valued, it boosts your self-esteem and your confidence.
Yeah, it's like getting a social high five.
Yeah.
But then on the other hand, criticism, rejection, or negative feedback from others can make our confidence take a hit.
Yeah, it's like getting a social thumbs down.
Hmm.
Those experiences can make us question our worth and what we can do, especially if they come from people whose opinions matter to us.
This really shows how important it is to be around people who support us. A network of people who believe in us and want to see us grow. It's like having a cheerleading squad that helps us stay positive and strong when we face challenges.
Exactly. And it's not just about individual interactions. DigyKeys also points out that the culture and society we live in can shape how we see and express confidence.
So what might be considered confident in one culture might be seen differently in another.
Exactly. In some cultures, being assertive and showing your self-belief openly is really valued, while in other cultures, humility and modesty are seen as better qualities.
That's a good point. It means we need to be aware of those cultural differences and find ways to express our confidence in a way that feels authentic to us and that respects the norms of the people around us. Okay, so far we've looked at a lot of the theory behind self-confidence, but I'm really interested in hearing about some practical things we can do. What can we actually do to build that unshakable self-confidence? I'm ready for some actionable advice.
DigyKeys has a lot to offer in that area. It gives a ton of practical techniques, and we're going to explore some of the best ones.
Perfect. Where should we start?
One powerful approach is to use cognitive behavioral techniques, or CBT, to challenge negative thoughts. Remember we talked about that earlier when we were talking about core beliefs?
Yeah, it was about noticing those negative thoughts and actively trying to replace them with more positive and realistic ones.
Right. CBT can help us realize when we're having those automatic negative thoughts that sabotage our confidence. Instead of letting those thoughts take over, we learn how to look at them in a more positive way.
So instead of thinking, I'm going to mess this up, we could try thinking, I've prepared well and I can do this.
Exactly. It's about switching from a mindset of doubt to a mindset of belief. By constantly challenging and reframing negative thoughts, we create a more positive inner voice that helps build our confidence.
I like that. It's about becoming more aware of how we think and actively shaping those thoughts in a better direction.
DigyKeys also talks about how important mastery experiences are, which we talked about before with self-efficacy.
Right. Those times when you succeed at something or get past a challenge.
Exactly. By setting goals that we can actually achieve and working towards them consistently, we build up a history of success that makes us believe in ourselves more.
I love that idea. It's like building momentum. Each small win, no matter how small it might seem, adds to our growing sense of confidence.
Exactly. And don't forget the power of positive self-talk and affirmations.
Those I am statements that affirm our strengths and what we're capable of.
Yeah, using positive affirmations consistently can really help change our subconscious minds to believe in ourselves more.
It's like planting seeds of confidence that will eventually grow and bloom over time.
Exactly. And lastly, DigyKeys reminds us that going to therapy or counseling can be really helpful for people who have ongoing problems with self-confidence.
Especially if those problems come from deeper emotional issues or things that happened in the past that might be hard to deal with on our own.
Definitely. A therapist can offer personalized guidance and help you work through those underlying things that might be holding you back.
Wow, this has been an amazing journey. We've learned so much about the foundation of self-belief, the importance of core beliefs and social influences, and all these practical ways to build lasting confidence.
We really have covered a lot of ground, but our exploration of self-confidence isn't quite over yet. There are still some key takeaways to highlight, and I have one final thought-provoking question for you.
Welcome back to the DigyKeys podcast. We're finishing up our deep dive into self-confidence, and I'm excited to hear what other great insights DigyKeys has for us.
It's been such an interesting exploration, Ethan. Let's go over some of the key things we've learned before we get to that final thought-provoking question I promised.
Sounds good. Can you remind us what are the most important things to remember about self-confidence?
Well, the first and most important thing is that self-confidence is a skill. It's not something you're just born with. DigyKeys really stresses this point throughout its material.
Yeah, that's a really powerful idea. It means that no matter where we are on our confidence journey, we can always learn and get better. We're not limited by the level of confidence we had when we were born.
Right. Confidence is something we can develop through practice effort and the right techniques. It's like anything else. The more we work on it, the better we get.
And we learned that self-esteem is super important for building lasting confidence. It's like the foundation that everything else is built on.
Absolutely. If you don't have a strong sense of your own worth, it's a lot harder to believe you can succeed. So often, the first step to building unshakable confidence is dealing with any self-esteem issues you might have.
We also explore that cool concept of self-efficacy, the belief that we can make things happen through our own actions.
And remember those fascinating studies that DigyKeys talked about. They showed that self-efficacy is a really strong predictor of achievement, even stronger than things like natural talent or intelligence. When you believe you can do something, you're much more likely to put in the work, get through the tough times, and ultimately reach your goals.
It's amazing how much our belief can actually shape what happens in our lives. And speaking of beliefs, we also learned about how important it is to recognize and change those negative core beliefs that can hold us back.
DigyKeys gives some great advice on how to do this, like challenging those beliefs with evidence, using positive affirmations, and getting professional help when you need it. It's all about creating a better mental framework that supports you in growing and succeeding.
And we can't forget about the social side of self-confidence. We're social beings after all. and the ways we interact with others can have a huge impact on how we see ourselves.
That's where sociometer theory comes in. The idea that our self-esteem is like a gauge for how accepted we feel by others. Positive interactions make us feel more confident, while negative ones can chip away at it. It really shows how important it is to surround ourselves with people who support us, people who believe in us and want to see us grow.
It's like having a cheering squad that helps us stay positive and focused. And we also talked about how different cultures have different ideas about confidence. What might be seen as confident in one culture might be viewed differently in another. It's important to be aware of those differences.
For sure. It's about finding ways to express our confidence in a way that feels true to who we are, and that also respects the social norms of the people around us.
This deep dive has been full of insights. We've learned so much about the psychology of self-confidence, from the roles of self-esteem and self-efficacy, to the impact of core beliefs and how other people influence us. But most importantly, we've explored a lot of practical strategies that we can start using right now to boost our confidence.
And that brings us to that final thought-provoking question I mentioned. As you keep working on building that unshakable self-confidence, think about this. What's one small step you can take today to get closer to that goal?
That's a great question. It really makes us want to take action, to start putting all this knowledge into practice. Confidence isn't something that happens overnight. It's a journey, a process of constantly growing and learning about ourselves.
And remember, you don't have to do it alone. DigyKeys has tons of resources to help you along the way. I highly recommend checking out their guide called The Confidence Blueprint. It's a fantastic resource packed with practical tips and strategies.
That's a great tip. And of course, you can find the Confidence Blueprint and lots of other great resources over at DigyKeys.com. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive into self-confidence. Until next time, keep learning, keep growing, and keep believing in yourself.
See you next time.